This morning, something really cool. Artificial intelligence helping to solve an ancient mystery from the Roman Empire. It all involves scrolls from a library that was buried when Mount Vesuvius erupted way back in 79 AD. Now, students using AI technology are helping archaeologists figure out what's inside those scrolls.
For 2,000 years, they lay buried beneath layers of volcanic ash, blackened and fragile, unreadable to every scholar who touched them. Charred scrolls that crumbled at the slightest breath, holding ideas so forbidden that even the most powerful Romans tried to erase them from history. But what secrets could survive untouched for millennia, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally see them?
You have heard of Pompeii, the ancient Roman city destroyed when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. When the city was rediscovered in the 1700s, excavators found what could be the richest repository of ancient Western wisdom.
And yet, against all odds, modern technology has unlocked their words. What we are reading now is not poetry, not myth, not mundane records. It is a hidden philosophy, radical and dangerous, that the elite of Rome never wanted anyone to see. The past was silent, but now it is speaking. And what it says could change everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. Vesuvius's lost library. To understand why this library matters, you need to understand what happened on October 24th in the year 79 AD. Most people know about Pompeii, the famous Roman city frozen in time by volcanic ash. But there was another town, closer to the mountain, that got hit far worse. A town called Herculaneum. Herculaneum was not like Pompeii. It was smaller, wealthier, more exclusive. This was where the richest families in the Roman Empire came to escape the summer heat of the capital. Seaside villas lined the coast, filled with marble statues and elaborate gardens, and private libraries stocked with the finest literature the ancient world had produced. The most magnificent of these estates was the Villa of the Papyri, a sprawling complex that many historians believe belonged to Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesoninus. If that name sounds important, it should. Piso was the father-in-law of Julius Caesar. His family was connected to the most powerful people in Roman history, and his villa contained a library that was the envy of the Mediterranean world. On the morning of the eruption, the people of Herculaneum saw something strange on the horizon. A massive column of smoke and debris rising from the peak of Vesuvius, climbing 20 miles into the sky.
Time stopped in the year 79 AD. Mount Vesuvius erupted, sealing 2 Italian towns in ash, mud, and lava.
The mountain had been quiet for so long that many residents did not even know it was a volcano. They thought it was just a mountain, the same way you might think of any forested hill in the distance. Some people gathered to watch the spectacle. Others went about their business, assuming the danger would pass. They were catastrophically wrong. What happened next was not a gradual rain of ash like what fell on Pompeii. Herculaneum experienced something far more violent. The eruption column collapsed under its own weight and sent a pyroclastic surge racing down the mountain at over 100 miles per hour. This was a wave of superheated gas and pulverized rock, moving faster than any human could run, hotter than any fire the Romans had ever experienced. The temperature exceeded 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When it hit Herculaneum, it did not burn the town. I baked it. Everything organic was carbonized instantly. Wood turned to charité. Flesh turned to charité. And the scrolls in the great library of the Villa of the Papyri turned to charité as well. Then came the mud. 60 feet of volcanic material buried the entire town, compressing under its own weight into solid rock. Herculaneum was not just destroyed, it was sealed, entombed, cut off from the air and moisture that would have rotted away its contents over the following centuries. The same catastrophe that killed everyone in the town also preserved their world in a way that no other ancient site has ever been preserved. Pompeii which received lighter ashfall, actually deteriorated more over time. The ash was porous. The air got in. Things rotted, leaving behind hollow cavities where bodies and objects had once been. But Herculaneum was different. The heavy volcanic mud turned to stone and protected everything inside like a time capsule sealed with a lock that would not be opened for 17 centuries. When explorers first tunneled into the villa in the 1750s, they did not understand what they had found. The scrolls looked like pieces of burnt firewood. Workers actually threw many of them away or used them as torches before someone finally noticed that they were shaped like rolls. Even after the scrolls were identified as texts, the early archaeologists treated them with devastating carelessness. They tried to slice them open with knives.
Papyrus from the ancient world, from the Dead Sea Scroll collection. That turned out to be a huge challenge that stalled us for a while, and then we became reinvigorated because of the success of the scroll from En-Gedi.
They attempted to unroll them by force. They soaked them in chemicals, hoping to soften the carbonized papyrus. Almost every technique they tried resulted in destruction. Scrolls that had survived 2,000 years underground were reduced to piles of black dust by well-meaning researchers who had no idea how to handle what they had discovered. The scrolls that survived those early experiments are miraculous. Over 800 remain, stored in a museum in Naples, too fragile to touch, too carbonized to read. For over 200 years, they have been silent monuments to a disaster. Everyone knew that priceless knowledge was locked inside them. No one could figure out how to get it out. The scrolls were preserved by the very process that made them unreadable. The carbonization protected the ink from fading, but rendered the text invisible. You cannot see black carbon ink on black carbon paper. You cannot unroll material that shatters at the slightest pressure. The library was saved and lost at the same time, until artificial intelligence changed everything.
Now scientists have found a way to unravel the mystery by using artificial intelligence to read the scrolls without opening them.
Decoding the ancient dark. The breakthrough did not happen in a prestigious research laboratory or a well-funded university department. It happened on a laptop computer in a college dormitory in Lincoln, Nebraska, achieved by a student who had never held an ancient artifact in his life. The story begins with a competition called the Vesuvius Challenge. In 2023, a group of tech entrepreneurs and scientists put up $700,000 in prize money and issued a global call for help. The mission was simple to describe and seemingly impossible to accomplish. Read the unreadable scrolls. Find the words that had been hidden for 2 millennia. Do what every previous generation had failed to do. The challenge attracted competitors from around the world. Professional researchers and amateur enthusiasts, computer scientists and classicists, anyone who thought they might have an idea that could crack the problem. The organizers provided high-resolution CT scans of several scrolls, 3-dimensional maps showing every layer of the rolled-up papyrus in extraordinary detail. The scans had been made using particle accelerators that could image the interior of the scrolls without physically touching them. The data existed. What was missing was a way to interpret it. Here was the fundamental problem. When the ancient scribes wrote on papyrus, they used ink made from carbon mixed with gum arabic. The papyrus itself was made from plant fibers. When Vesuvius erupted and the pyroclastic surge hit the library, both the ink and the paper were carbonized simultaneously. To a human eye, and even to most imaging technologies, they became indistinguishable. The ink was carbon, the paper was carbon, everything was the same shade of black. Looking for letters in the CT scans was like trying to find a specific shadow in a dark room. But Luke Farrader, a 21-year-old computer science student at the University of Nebraska, had an idea. What if the ink, even though it was the same color as the paper, had a different texture? When wet ink dries on a surface, it changes that surface in subtle ways. It fills tiny gaps in the fibers. It creates microscopic variations in density. Those variations might be invisible to the naked eye, but they might be detectable by a machine learning algorithm trained to look for exactly those patterns. Ferrator spent weeks building and training his AI system. He fed it data about how ink behaves on papyrus. He taught it to recognize the crackle patterns that form when carbon-based ink dries on organic material. He ran the CT scan data through his program again and again, adjusting parameters, refining the detection algorithms, hoping to find something that everyone else had missed. Then one night, the program produced a result. A cluster of pixels that formed a recognizable shape. A Greek letter, then another, then another. The AI had found a word buried in the carbonized layers of a scroll that had been sealed since the Roman Empire. The word was porphyros, purple. That single word changed the course of archaeological history. It proved that the detection method worked. It proved that the ink was still there, still readable, if you had the right tools to see it. Within days, Ferrator's discovery was verified by independent researchers. Within weeks, other teams were using similar techniques to extract more characters. Within months, over 2,000 letters had been decoded from a scroll that everyone had believed was permanently illegible. The process they developed is called virtual unwrapping.
Virtual unwrapping begins by acquiring a three-dimensional volumetric scan of the damaged manuscript. This scan produces a set of cross-sectional images that show the internal structure of the scroll.
The CT scans create a three-dimensional model of every layer in the rolled scroll, capturing details down to the individual fibers of the papyrus. The AI analyzes this model and identifies where ink is present based on textural differences that are imperceptible to human vision. Then software digitally unrolls the scroll, flattening the curved layers into a readable surface without ever physically touching the fragile original. The amount of data involved is staggering. A single small section of scroll generates terabytes of information. The scans must be detailed enough to show variations measured in micrometers. Processing this data requires computing power that simply did not exist a decade ago. The Vesuvius challenge succeeded not because someone finally had a clever idea, but because the technology had finally caught up to the ambition. Artificial intelligence, advanced imaging, and massive computational resources converged at exactly the right moment to solve a problem that had defeated every previous generation. And when scholars finally read the words that emerged from the darkness, they discovered something extraordinary. This was not a random collection of mundane texts. This was philosophy, radical philosophy, ideas that challenged the foundations of Roman power, written by a man who lived in the very heart of the imperial elite. Ancient words, modern shock. The author of the first decoded scroll was a man named Philodemus of Gadara. If you have never heard his name, you are not alone. Philodemus was not famous in his own time, at least not in the way that Cicero or Virgil were famous. He did not write for the masses. He did not seek public acclaim. He was a house philosopher, a private teacher employed by wealthy Roman families to instruct them in the art of living well. Philodemus belonged to a school of thought called Epicureanism. This was a philosophy founded by the Greek thinker Epicurus 3 centuries earlier, and it taught something that made powerful people very uncomfortable. Epicurus argued that the purpose of life was not conquest or glory or the accumulation of wealth. The purpose of life was ataraxia, a Greek word meaning tranquility or freedom from disturbance. The highest good was a peaceful mind, achieved through simple pleasures, close friendships, and the avoidance of unnecessary desires. To a Roman emperor trying to motivate armies to conquer distant lands, this philosophy was dangerous. To a senator trying to climb the political ladder by any means necessary, this philosophy was subversive. Epicureanism taught that power was an illusion, that fame was meaningless, that the gods did not care about human affairs, and that death was nothing to fear because once you were gone, you would not experience anything at all. These were not ideas that the ruling class wanted spreading among the common people. And yet here was Philodemus, living in one of the most expensive homes in the Roman world, teaching these ideas to the family of Julius Caesar. The irony was not lost on him. The decoded scrolls reveal a man who was acutely aware of the contradiction between his philosophy and his circumstances. He wrote with wit and self-awareness, using everyday examples to illustrate his points, mocking the pretensions of the wealthy even while he enjoyed their hospitality. One section of the decoded text discusses food. Philodemus argues that people who believe expensive delicacies taste better than simple meals are deceiving themselves. If you are genuinely hungry, he writes, a piece of bread and a cup of water will satisfy you just as completely as a banquet of exotic dishes. The pleasure is in the eating, not in the price tag. This might seem obvious today, but in a world where Roman aristocrats spent fortunes importing rare spices and unusual animals for their dinner parties, it was a direct challenge to the entire culture of elite consumption. Another section addresses the color purple. In ancient Rome, purple dye was the ultimate status symbol.
The very worst job of all is an incredibly disgusting and very ancient one, and one that underlies the very symbol of royalty itself, the purple maker.
It was extracted from thousands of tiny sea snails through a laborious process that made it worth more than its weight in gold. Only emperors and the highest officials were permitted to wear garments of pure purple. The color represented power, authority, divine favor. But Philodemus dismisses it entirely. The joy you get from wearing purple, he writes, is not real joy. It is an illusion created by social convention. You are not happier in a purple robe than in a plain one. You only think you are because other people told you to value it. Consider the context in which these words were written. Philodemus was living in a villa decorated with the finest art and furniture that Roman money could buy. He was surrounded by bronze statues and marble columns and elaborate mosaics. His patrons wore the purple robes he was criticizing. And yet he wrote these words anyway for the private library where only the inner circle would read them. It is like finding a manifesto against capitalism hidden in the corporate headquarters of a Fortune 500 company. The decoded texts also reveal Philodemus mocking religious practices. He describes the elaborate festivals and sacrifices that Romans performed to honor their gods, and he dismisses them as nothing more than displays of wealth. The gods do not care about your gold or your slaughtered animals, he argues. These rituals exist to impress other humans, not divine beings. If the gods exist at all, they are indifferent to human affairs. This was dangerous thinking in an empire where the official state religion was intertwined with political power. Criticizing religious practices was criticizing the system itself. Perhaps most striking is what the scrolls say about death. Philodemus addresses the universal human fear of mortality with characteristic directness. Why do you worry about being dead, he asks, when you will not experience anything once you are gone? You did not suffer during the infinite time before you were born. You will not suffer during the infinite time after you die. Death is simply the absence of experience. There is nothing to fear. Focus instead on the present moment and the people around you. These ideas were too radical for public consumption. They undermined the motivations that drove Roman society: the pursuit of glory, the accumulation of wealth, the fear of divine punishment, the desperate quest for immortality through fame. If ordinary citizens started believing that none of these things mattered, the entire social order would collapse. The library of the Villa of the Papyri was not just a collection of books. It was a sanctuary for forbidden thoughts, hidden away in a private estate where only the trusted few could access them. And then Vesuvius erupted, and the sanctuary became a tomb. The ideas that were too dangerous for the streets of Rome were sealed away for 2,000 years, waiting for a technology that did not yet exist to set them free. Now, artificial intelligence has become a historical whistleblower, bringing ancient secrets into the light of the modern world. And the message from the past turns out to be surprisingly relevant to the present. The gold rush beneath the rock. The success of the Vesuvius challenge has triggered something unprecedented in the world of archaeology.
Buried under the volcanic ash from Vesuvius, Herculaneum, like Pompeii, is a perfectly preserved time capsule of Roman life. Some of its secrets were burnt to a crisp.
For decades, excavation at the Villa of the Papyri had essentially stopped. Researchers knew that more scrolls were buried beneath the site, but they were terrified of destroying texts they could not yet read. Every previous attempt to handle the carbonized papyrus had resulted in damage. The responsible thing, everyone agreed, was to wait until technology caught up to the challenge. That wait is now over. Plans are being developed to return to Herculaneum with entirely new approaches. Instead of digging blindly, teams will use ground-penetrating radar and advanced sensors to map the buried sections of the villa before removing a single stone. They will know exactly where scrolls are located before they ever break ground. Tiny robots equipped with cameras could potentially navigate through cracks and voids in the volcanic rock, providing visual confirmation of what lies beneath. And when scrolls are eventually recovered, they can be scanned immediately, their contents decoded by AI before anyone attempts to physically unroll them. The implications extend far beyond this one site. Libraries across the ancient world were destroyed by fire, war, and natural disaster. Texts that influenced the course of human history were lost forever. Or so we thought. If AI can read scrolls that were carbonized by volcanic heat, what else might it be able to recover? Burnt manuscripts from the Library of Alexandria. Charred documents from medieval monasteries destroyed by Viking raids. Private collections consumed by house fires centuries ago. Any text that was damaged but not completely obliterated might now be within reach. The technology is also being applied to scrolls that were partially read in the past. Early archaeologists did manage to unroll some of the Herculaneum papyri using painstaking mechanical methods, but the process was so destructive that large sections were rendered illegible. Those damaged sections are now being re-examined with AI-enhanced imaging. Words that were smeared or fragmented during the original unrolling are being recovered. The full content of texts that scholars thought they understood is being revealed for the first time, and there is still so much more to find. The Villa of the Papyri contained at least 1,800 scrolls when it was buried. Only about 600 have been recovered. The rest remain underground, sealed in chambers that have not been opened since the year 79 AD. Based on the layout of Roman libraries and the organization of the scrolls that have been found, researchers believe the collection was divided by subject matter. The scrolls decoded so far have all come from the Greek philosophy section. Somewhere in the unexcavated portions of the villa, there may be sections devoted to Latin literature, to history, to poetry, to science. There may be works by famous authors whose writings were thought to be completely lost. Consider what might be waiting in the darkness. We possess only fragments of the work of many ancient authors. Entire plays by Sophocles and Euripides are known only by their titles. Histories of important events were written and then vanished. Scientific treatises that could have advanced human knowledge were destroyed before anyone could copy them. The library of the Villa of the Papyri was assembled by one of the wealthiest and most connected families in Rome. They would have had access to the best texts available. They would have collected rare works that existed in only a handful of copies. Any one of those works could rewrite our understanding of the ancient world. The archaeologists planning the next phase of excavation are acutely aware of what is at stake. This is not like digging up pottery shards or analyzing architectural foundations. This is the recovery of human thought itself, ideas that have been silent for 2,000 years, finally given voice again. Every scroll that emerges from beneath the rock is a message from ancestors who struggled with the same questions we do. Every decoded text is a reminder that the past is not as distant as we imagine. The scrolls have begun to speak, but what they have revealed so far is only a fraction of what lies buried beneath Herculaneum. 2,000 years of silence have been broken, and yet the library is far from fully understood. Hundreds of scrolls remain carbonized, fragile, and hidden, each one potentially holding ideas that could rewrite history, philosophy, even the way we see ourselves. What other forbidden thoughts were lost to fire? What truths were deemed too dangerous to survive the empire, and now, with AI as our key, could finally emerge? The past is awakening, but every discovery raises more questions than answers. How much of history have we been missing? And when the next secret is revealed, will it change everything we thought we knew about the ancient world, or challenge what we believe about ourselves? The fire that destroyed Herculaneum preserved its greatest treasure. And now, after 2 millennia, that treasure is speaking again. Will we be ready to listen?